Hej Olle.
Tjena!
Hej.
Hur är läget?
Det är bra.
Härligt!
Jag ska få in med lite lunch här innan det här.
Ja, jag tar det efter.
Men jag har inte med mig lunchpromenaden så jag får ta det efter.
Jag kommer alldeles strax, jag ska bara kolla in.
Ja.
Nyss.
Jag har sett att Andrea är lite aktiv så vi ska nog vänta in honom.
Ja. Eller vad sa du? Aktiv på...
Ja, han är aktiv i tickets. Så att jag tror att han kommer.
Ja, okej.
Han håller på med CDEvents grejer så han kommer snart.
Ja, just det. Jag skrev lite kommentarer här i förmiddag så att han kanske håller på med någon. Jaha, men berätta, vad gör du annars på dagen?
Oj, jag är bara på Ericsson.
Ja.
Tools, CI. Styr lite över byggmaskinen på Ericsson.
Okej.
Leveransmaskinen. Hej Andrea.
Hello, good morning.
Hello Andrea.
Hej Andrea.
We started off in Swedish here, so if you see the recording afterwards, you won't.
Oh, you're right. It's recorded. Sorry, my bad. I forgot. That's funny. Oh, well.
We didn't share the sensitive things, I guess.
No. I should have remembered that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Bruno was going to join, and Brad was ill, right? So
yeah,
I don't know if anyone else.
You wait for Bruno, or?
I can Slack him. Oh, I think we can. He's not answering, so.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, let's get started then. So welcome everyone to the CDEvents working group. Today is January the 30th already, well, 2023. My name is Andrea Frittoli, I work for IBM. I'm in UTC, and please feel free to add yourself to the participant list for today's meeting. Just briefly, action points from last week. We had one action to actually properly archive the CDEvents notes, which hopefully I did right this time. So I have to go back and read the history, but so these are the CDEvents from, well, ending November and beginning in January 2022. So that's it. And the file is, it's called 2022. So we have now SIG meeting notes 2021, 22, and the current ones.
Wasn't there any meeting in December in SIG? Maybe it wasn't. Can't remember now.
I think there wasn't, because I took the version before the last archival, and didn't see anything in there for December.
Okay. I guess that's correct then.
And I will check again. Well, I'll double check again offline. I don't want to take
Yeah,
your time
sure,
now.
sure, yeah.
Okay, and there was one discussion about versioning last time, and I promised to create an issue, possibly a PR, about documenting better why we took the decision we took about versioning, and I created the issue at least. I've not created the PR yet. Anything else that I may have missed from actions from last week? Okay, then let's move to next topic, test events. So some discussion about the PR. Would you like to go through the comments of the state, or is any general update that you would like to provide, Ole?
No, so thank you so much for commenting, Andrea. And I've dug in, I guess, for really first this morning. There were some offbeat comments last week, I think. So I think maybe the biggest, most interesting discussion coming out of that is if we should rename the subjects to test case run and a test suite run, similar to we have like pipeline run and task run in the core events or core bucket, because as you pointed out, these events are really related to runs of a test case, and I guess that's a misunderstanding on my end. So thanks for pointing that out. I don't know if you want to comment on that now or think about it. To me, it makes sense to model it like that versus modeling the actual test case or test suite subjects. I think it's more clear about what we're actually notifying about on these events. So I've made that change. I just didn't have time to push it because I need, it's those ripple effects. I have to update the schema and all the links and blah blah blah. So it's kind of takes a little while. But I think that was a good idea. At least I don't know if you have any more comments or thoughts on that.
I think it's good that we have the same way of naming things. That's fine. I wasn't maybe from the beginning particularly fond of the name where we include run in the name, but I see the reason to distinguish it from the, should we say, the definition of an activity or so, stating that this is the actual execution or run of something. So I guess run is a short enough word. It's maybe one thing against it is that it's very Tecton-ish.
Is it? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but I don't know. I hope that it won't scare people away just because we use terms which are more or less bound to Tecton at the moment, at least.
I mean, the other is execution, but
it is very long. So
exactly. So I mean, my bad. I haven't used Tecton, so I didn't. And I think using the word run like this doesn't seem like
I guess it could be
domain specific. Fine. So it's fine.
Yeah.
And I also renamed. I think we had this discussion about result. I renamed it to output, test output last week, which I think was also a good idea to kind of clarify. And then there was a question about severity versus priority. Bruno was going to answer that one. Apart from that, I'll make the corresponding changes and I'll update the PR and I'll let you know, and then we can riff on that there, I guess. One thing which was maybe slightly tangential was when I wrote the schema, it seems to me like the schemas for all the sub events are more or less the same. It's just the content part which differs between all of them. Is that correctly understood? And then the enum for the type of the scheme or the event, but then kind of the wrapping of the actual object is always the same. Is that Is that correctly understood? Or I mean, I didn't look at everyone, but a couple.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So the subject is the same for everyone. The schema there. So, and a part of the context. Sorry, the context is the same for everyone, and the initial part of the subject as well. I think initial setup where we try and split out that common part and then reference like schema with reference. But finally we decided against it. We prefer to have like single schema that contain the whole specification for every event. And maybe in future do some automation to generate those schemas and compose them out to some templates or something.
That's exactly what I was thinking. If there's, but maybe it's too early to do that kind of optimization.
I don't think it's necessarily too early. I think it wasn't just urgent enough for us to, but we have limited resources, so that's it didn't end up in high in the priority enough to do it already. But that's something that you're keen on helping out with for sure. By any means, we wouldn't push back.
Yeah, that sounds like a good hobby weekend kind of thing. So okay, I can, once we get this PR through the works and merged, happy to look at if that can be optimized somehow, because just to kind of avoid inconsistencies, I guess it's easy to copy paste and then some error kind of, you know.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, so renaming, I'll rename the subjects, and then I don't know if you want to in detail go through the proposal, or if we should wait until we've changed it from a draft PR to a real PR, and maybe on the next call I can walk through kind of what we've actually landed on in regard to everything.
I think if we have time, we could take it now as well. Maybe we should leave enough room for incident event discussion, because that's something that we intend to put in the next release at least, and test events might come there, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah, but
so if we have time, of course, we can come back to test events in the end of this meeting. I guess
I think that's a good idea. So let's do the incident events.
Okay. Sorry, just going to catch up with notes.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. So we have an agreement at least that we will go with the renaming, right?
Yeah, this is fine. Yeah. Should we then maybe write that down somewhere as well, that we intend all our events that correspond to something that is started and finished should be runs, and then so we continue doing it that way for coming event types. At least make an issue on writing such a documentation. Maybe it doesn't need to be part of this PR.
I think it's a good point. I mean, I obviously missed it when creating this proposal, so maybe calling out that it's important to distinguish between the execution of an object and the object itself, and then or the run of an object, and then that we try to maybe model the actual runs as, and then referring to the. I can add some blurb about that somewhere.
One thing that is not aligned with that is the build, then, because the build event is just as build, so then it should probably be build run instead, if we should continue that way of naming things. I'm not sure if that makes sense really, say build run, but
it's tricky because build is a verb as well, right? You could build something,
but it's also a noun. It's both.
Yeah, exactly, it's both.
A build, so the run of a build. I don't think it's wrong English wise, but
For
it
consistency, you
sounds a
mean?
bit strange as well. So yeah, I don't really know. So I mean, if we should have such a rule, what should it say then? If we don't want to have build as a build run,
Maybe we can have a rule that says that the term should refer to an execution. And in the case of build, it does, because it's a verb as well. While in the case of pipeline or test case, it would be the name refers to the study definition. So we need to have an alternative.
Yeah, I could say where there might be, if you know, if there's a risk of confusion between the object and its execution, we should tag on the word run at the end.
Makes sense.
Well, that's a good phrase. So
Yep.
you would create an issue, Emil, or
Yep, sure. I will. Yep.
Okay. All right. So for the incident, so what I did in the PR, I updated the predicate to be detected as opposed to reported, so that we now have incident detected and incident resolved.
But didn't you say reported as well? So we had 3 different predicates. We look at the minutes there. Yeah.
Oh, that should include a reference to the ticket. Okay, so I need to add that back. Yes, I was getting confused with the severity that we said we shouldn't have it. But we want to have the reported ones. Okay,
so 3 different states or different predicates, I think.
And that will include a ticket.
Yeah. So for all this information, I think you weren't there in the meeting. We had the meeting last Tuesday, I think it was, and Ben was there. So we discussed this about incidents when something happens in a running system, when you have deployed your binary or software somewhere, and an incident occurs, then it could be so that, well, you could have an incident reporting system that automatically creates issue requests or issue reports for you. But if you don't, it would anyway be valuable to somehow be able to detect or to notify that we have detected an incident, even though there is no formal issue ticket written for it yet. So an incident is supposed to be detected, and in many cases, maybe it can be reported more or less immediately at the same time, but then the reported event should contain the reference to the actual issue ticket in some issue tracking system.
Okay, understand.
Yep.
So question then would be for incident reported for the ticket reference.
I guess it should be a URI.
It could be an ID or it could be a URI. Shall we go for a URI to begin with?
If you would be an ID, you mean it should be to another event? I mean, an ID of another event, or?
We might add. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, just URI. URI seems more actionable, I guess, or at least like if someone receives this event and there's an URI, that's something they can can click on it. It's maybe hard to do something with an ID apart from.
Yeah.
But of course, URI probably contains an ID as well.
Contains the ID
as part of it. And
yeah.
Well, I don't know if there are still ticketing systems which don't have any URI possibilities. I mean, manual archives of some sort. But I don't know if we should support that. Although in that case, we could have URI as an optional property and then an ID as another optional, and you would say that you would need either of those at least. Something.
No, but I agree with you about that. URI, it's good.
We assume that both systems have URIs, yeah.
Yeah.
But would this be mandatory or would it be optional?
I think it should be mandatory. I mean, the idea with sending the event is more or less to state that you have reported the incident somehow. So there it needs to be available in some external system, I assume.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an aspect of access control here. I mean, the URI might not be accessible from where you're. I don't know if that's something we need to care about.
No, but I think that's good actually, that it's not. I mean, if it contains some sensitive data or if it's not accessible by anyone, then it's good that we don't include the actual information here, but just the URI, so that only people that are assumed to be able to read that information can actually get access to it.
Yeah. And just a somewhat related question, is alerting something you've talked about in this context or in CDEvents context? Like an alert could result in an incident, blah, blah, blah. I'm just...
I think alert is it's more or less the same thing. I mean, you could replace them, I guess. I'm not sure if we need both. I know that in the Eiffel protocol that we have been using in Ericsson for some more time, we have proposed an extension that actually contains alert events as opposed to incident events. But what actually the documentation about that or those events say is that this alert event should be sent when there is an incident. So it's in fact really just notifying about the incidents anyway. So of course we could discuss if alert is better than incident, but I don't think we need them both.
Sorry, no. I was just curious. I mean, if I haven't really thought it through, I was just wondering, to your point, that there seems to be an overlap to just conceptually between an alert and an incident, and I was wondering if that's something you've kind of assessed or discussed. And I don't have a strong position on either. I was just curious.
I don't think that we actually discussed if it should be incident or alert, but I know that incident is also used in the DORA metrics, right? Where the requirements on this event comes from, really, that we should be able to report on incidents in a system, because that's what DORA states. Well, it says failure in the name of the metric, but it says, I think, incident in the description of that metric, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Well, it's failure. Yeah.
In the meantime to recovery, and also
this is 17. It's not the official. It's not the right.
Yeah. There you were, I think, up there. Oh, there you were as well. Yeah. Good.
Okay, so change failure rate.
It doesn't say incident.
It doesn't actually talk about.
But there says incident on the time to restore service incident or a defect. It's a defect as well. Defect
that impacts
detected.
users. But I think the definition of incident that you pointed to from NIST glossary would cover that as well. So an occurrence that actually or potentially jeopardizes the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an information system. All the information system processes, stores, and transmit, or that constitutes a violation or imminent threat to violation of security policies, security procedures, and acceptable use policies. I mean, this definition is slightly biased towards security incident, I would say. But I think it still covers.
I think an alert could be not necessarily just something negative. It could be more or less a notification that something has happened in your system. Like, I don't know, a new user has been.
Yeah, exactly. It's something.
I don't know, onboarded or something. That's an alert. Or someone has started using this service. But that's not really the reason for this event, I think. This is to report on issues or problems in the system, right?
Yeah, incidents to me is something that you have to, that you need to react to, and they're somehow negative, I guess. To your point, an alert could be really anything. So and yeah, maybe the question of alerting is separate, and something could be defined, even have separate events. I don't know, which then could, I don't know what the relationship then would be to incidents.
Okay.
I think
yeah,
we
that's
can
something
leave that for now. Yeah.
Yeah, something we can consider for the future. I think, as you said, like the scope we wanted to cover for the next release is what we need for the 2 DORA metrics.
Yeah.
And I think then incident would cover for those.
Yep.
All right. I will update the PR then to include the incident reported. I added the schema for the 2 detected and resolved, so I will add the schema for the 3rd one as well. And yeah, and anything else? Otherwise, are we happy with the initial set of fields that we have in the events? So right now it's description, a reference to the environment, a reference to the service, and the artifact ID, and it's the same for both events. And I think it would be the same for the other event with the additional URI for the ticket.
Are there any of these that are mandatory of the referencing fields there, you think? Or is everything optional in this one? I don't know how you do prepare it now in the environment is mandatory, it seems there.
Environment is the only one that is set mandatory for both events, yes. Because there could be an incident in an environment that is not necessarily specific to a service.
Sure, it could be at the infrastructure level or whatever.
Is it so that we always have an ID of an environment to reference? Or yeah, maybe we should assume that we have.
What else is in the environment object? Is it just the ID, or is it?
Yes, it's ID and optionally source, in case the ID is associated to some infrastructure as a service system.
Okay.
But more general cases will be just the ID.
Yeah, it has an optional URL field as well, the environment.
The environment itself, it does,
Mm.
but for the reference,
Yeah, it's enough with ID source.
we only have the ID and source. I mean, we could say that you can have any field from the environment.
No, but I think it's fine. We require more or less that they have previously sent an environment created event that can be referenced to this ID, right?
Yes, and that goes back to, I guess, the connecting event discussion.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe we will have to revisit this once we have a decision on those. Yeah, so there is ID, source, name, and URL in the environment subject.
By the way, we use URL there, not URI. Should we be consistent with that as well? I assume we should. URI is more universal, I think. Doesn't need to be a web URL. But if we change that now, it will be a massive change in many places. Maybe
it's a separate.
Should be a separate issue, maybe on changing all URLs to URIs, if so. But for this incident events, then should we keep with the URL for now, since we have URLs mostly elsewhere?
Well, if we want to go to URIs, maybe.
I think we have URIs elsewhere. So we are a bit inconsistent, but I agree we should use URIs as opposed to URLs. So maybe we can create an issue to update the environment events.
Yeah, and just make sure we use URI everywhere. I know I think we use URI for the test events.
It's a bit funny. We have, for example, I can show in the chat there. In the repository created, we have a field called URL, but the type is URI, and the description says URL to the repository, which is a bit interesting in the source code version control events.
Sorry, which events?
The source code version control. If you go down.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Repository created. You go down to. You can keep in the top, click in the topmost table for repository. Okay, there as well. Yeah, we have it as well. Yeah. Also in the event further down, it says more or less the same. So the type is URI, but it says in the field that it's URL. Yeah. This will be a non-backwards compatible change if we change the field to URI. But let's take that separately. That's not delay the incident PR due to that.
Yeah, to your point, just maybe creating an issue to ensure consistent URI, URL references.
I'm not sure where we would land that discussion anyway. If we would stay with URLs, maybe, but then we should have it as a separate discussion anyway.
Yeah, I think for type we always use either URI or URI reference.
Is there also the in the JSON schemas, do we use the format URI statement there? I think there's a possibility to use that as a format, that is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we.
I think I did, at least should have. Yeah. But once again, I don't know if we do it consistently.
Oh, there's no URL here.
Take repository created under for example.
Oh yeah.
There you have URL, but no formatting of it. So you don't use the format keyword here. Oh, we don't. Yeah. So that should be part of the issue as well, to make sure that we verify the format if we should have a certain format.
Yeah. I think I do enforce it in the Go SDK, but if there is a native type we can use in the schema, for sure we should include it in there.
I think it's a quite recent addition to the JSON schema standard, so maybe not all SDKs are aware of it.
Okay.
Sorry, you mean the format? Sorry.
Yeah. Or I'm not sure how recent, but it's at least more recent than our earliest spec of the Eiffel protocol, because there we don't use it either yet. I can create that issue.
Okay. But for the here, then okay. So okay, so the field name for the new predicate shall be URI then, as well as the type. Is that right?
Do you need an artifact ID here for the? Sorry, or am I looking at the wrong thing? If you go up, this was incident detected. There's an artifact ID property there under that table.
Yeah.
Is that? How does that relate to an incident?
Well, if the incident is associated with a specific version of an application, that's what it was meant to.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Because yeah, so the way the service is modeled, the service refers to a specific. No, the service does not refer, or does it? Yeah, the service refers to an artifact ID. But if it's redeployed, then the same service ID may be associated with different artifact IDs. I think that was
the okay. Yeah.
So if you just have the service ID, you don't know necessarily at which point in, well, you know which point in time, but you would have to find out at that point in time which version of the artifact ID was associated with that service. Which if you have the whole history, you might be able to do, but it seemed to me to be useful to have the artifact ID there, because then you can see, for instance, if an update is done and you have a number of incidents associated with a specific artifact ID, it's easier to correlate them and see, okay, the specific artifact is causing a lot of issues. That said, right now we have everywhere we use a single artifact ID. But there's one open discussion that we need to address at some point about aggregations, because services might probably be, in many cases, in most cases, a collection of artifacts rather than a single artifact. So that's something that we'll need to tackle at some point. But for consistency with what we have elsewhere right now, I just included a single artifact ID.
Okay, thank you. And these are all optional anyway, so.
Yes, they are. So the only mandatory one is the environment. So Emil, I think you were asking whether we want to have that mandatory or not, the environment. Did we come to a conclusion on that?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I'm not sure. But yeah, for now we could assume it's mandatory, but I was thinking, I don't really see what use cases we have, if there are any use cases where we might not have an ID of an environment. Might be a Unix server somewhere, which might not have an ID, but of course it has some kind of identifier, a name, probably. Yeah, I think we can assume that it has some kind of ID. It should be fine.
Okay.
I guess the ID could be, to your point, my Unix environment.
Yeah, it could be host
So,
name or
yeah, something,
yeah.
Whatever makes sense in the context of where the incident's happening.
Yes.
All right. We still have about 20 minutes. Does it make sense? I mean, are we happy with the discussion on incident event? And we could go back to the test cases. That suits.
I think
That's fine. I don't have any updates on the connecting events, as you said there either. And what else do we have in the end of the agenda there?
The only other things that I had was we could go through the roadmap to see if there is any update or anything.
But we can go back to test events. That's fine, since Ole is here. I think that's good.
Okay, great. How do we want to play this? Can you open that? Yeah, PR. So now I haven't. So one thing we talked about earlier was kind of renaming test case to test case run and all that stuff. I think there's the other discussions maybe, which would be interesting, is where is that coming? The artifact? Sorry, I'm misunderstanding the diff here. Is it showing?
No, I think this is just the fact that
I copy pasted from some
moved from to some other file.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just I'm looking for the right file to display, which I think would be not this one.
If you do the big one, the test events.
Yeah,
this
that's
one.
it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, as we discussed earlier, I can rename the subjects here to test case run and test suite run. Maybe one thing I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on, if you go down and I see here that test case URL should be, oops, my bad. Then should maybe be URI. If you go further down to the predicates, so we added this concept of a trigger to understand how a test was triggered, because tests can be triggered manually, they can be run by a pipeline, it can be scheduled, in relation to some event. And I guess it would be, I wrote here trigger.type and trigger.uri as a representation of a complex object. I can copy the model you had for environments. So I guess, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And then here also we added the concept of an environment to understand where the test is running. And should we here also use the same environment object that you had in the incidents? I'm happy to obviously reuse that object definition here.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that we previously had a test case queued predicate, which more or less says that this test case execution has been triggered for execution. or queued for execution, which essentially means it was triggered. So does it make sense to you, Ole, to have a specific event for that? For it
So
test case triggered or test case queued?
Well, actually not. That's kind of why I removed it. And my understanding of the previous predicate was that it was in the context of a test suite where you would, if you'd launch a test suite which contains 5 test cases, you would get, the first one would start if they're running sequentially, obviously, and then you would get queued events for the others. No,
I don't think that's the idea with them.
Okay, so was it? Because queued to me is at least someone is say run this, and then it's queued more from a system perspective. Okay, yeah. I'll run it when I have the resources available or when whatever precondition is fulfilled. And I
think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
So if we want that, then there has to be some way of, because sometimes those preconditions don't happen. So I don't know if we then need to have a canceled event or so you might queue something and then a predicate that's specific to unqueuing. I don't know if unqueue is the right thing.
I mean, we could compare it to Jenkins. Not saying that we should make it fully Jenkins only compatible or something like that, but in Jenkins there is the concept of queuing and is it dequeuing or canceling? I don't remember now. And then of course start and finish is when a build is being executed. So I think it makes sense to be able to show that in events, that something has been put into the execution queue, waiting for resources or waiting for something. So we can then afterwards calculate queue times on all kinds of activities that we have that are represented by events.
Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, great. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. So, and that definitely makes sense. So then, my bad for removing it. I'll put it back. My question then would be to what would the corresponding dequeuing event be? Cancel or cancel to me sounds like a user interaction, although it doesn't have to be. Obviously, that's just me. I don't know if you have any preference on that.
I'm used to calling it canceled. That's what we do in Eiffel as well. So that's fine with me. I realized that we have it for pipelines today. We don't cancel it, but we have queued, started, and finished. But we don't have it for tasks, which would maybe correspond to Jenkins jobs, for example, which is a bit strange that we don't have queued there, I think, as well. Okay, so that's another one of those rules, maybe, when we talked about naming before. Everything that is a run of something should probably be possible to put on queue. So both queue and canceling. I think that would make sense, but that's a separate discussion, I guess, as well. So maybe for the test case events, we could go with what we have today in the rest of the events, maybe, and then add the canceled predicate later.
Well, I'm happy to add canceled as well. While we're at it, because so the reason, because since I understood it being in the context of a test suite, that's pretty common that they are canceled because the predicate might be, or there be that, all test cases previously should succeed, and if one of them fails, you don't run the rest of the tests. So there you would definitely cancel any outstanding queued test cases. So I'm happy to add cancel unless you want to have a more separate discussion about how do we cancel across all our buckets and then add that consistently across them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Andrea, how is it done with Tecton, for example, in pipeline runs there? Is there a queued predicate in Tecton, or is it is that known to Tecton that something is queued in a pipeline?
Yeah, tasks are queued as well. They go through a queue. But basically that's.
Is there a concept of canceling as well then, or?
Yes, yes. So you create a resource. The way you run things in Tecton, you create a resource in etcd, and that's basically the queuing. And then when the controller picks it up, it's taking off the queue and executing it. And you can cancel it. Yes, you can have user requested cancellation, so you can say that the resource should be canceled. And the name we use there is cancel, both for task runs and pipeline runs.
So do you think it makes sense from Tecton perspective then to also include canceled predicates there for the task run and pipeline run?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could definitely have that. Yeah, I guess it's
So we could create a separate ticket, I guess.
Yeah.
To add cancelled events to the queue.
It's a subtle line how certain things you want to model them as different predicates or as different states of a single predicate. You have several possible outcomes. So you can have like a pipeline which is timing out. You can have a pipeline, for instance, that fails because, yeah, it wasn't successful. Simply, it ran to completion, but it wasn't successful. You can have a pipeline that fails because it was invalid. It was not, so it contains some syntax error. You can have a pipeline that fails because it was cancelled. But maybe the cancellation is actually, it's different enough from any other failure that it makes sense to track it as
I would say if a running test case or a running pipeline is cancelled by user interaction, I would say it's more or less more aborted at that. I mean, it's still, the pipeline is finished in the sense that it doesn't run anymore. And the result that could be included in the finished event would be, well, it didn't result in a successful execution, but it was aborted by user or interruption or some timeout or something else. It was still finished since it is not running anymore. That's at least how I would interpret it. And the same then for queuing, because if you would put something in a queue and then you dequeue it, that's when you would, to me at least, cancel it before it was even started. Because so those are like both queued and started are two different kind of starting events. And the queued event doesn't necessarily need to have a finished event, since when you start something, then it's obviously not queued anymore. But it could still be cancelled because it's somehow in the transition when it's queued.
So cancel can basically happen only between, it happens between the queued and the started time, is it?
To me, that is how it could be interpreted. Yeah, how it would make most sense.
Okay.
Although you could cancel a running test case just for the sake.
Yeah.
But then I think you actually abort it. You stop it, or you abort it rather, not really cancel it or.
I guess DQ would be maybe the most
more obvious, maybe.
Yeah, because you can't DQ once it started, really, because it's but it sounds a little bit constructive.
But I think from a user perspective, you want to stop running it, whether it has been picked up or not. It might be difficult even to tell from a user perspective.
Oh yeah. So I guess it's not the users who send these events. I mean, it's the system who sends them. So if it's in queue state or if it's in running state, then it would be different events sent. But
so we're saying that a canceled event could be triggered or notified or published even after it has started running, to your point.
I think it makes it harder, because if we would go that way, then I think maybe it's enough with just a finished event. And the finished event could contain a field called I don't know, execution something results, then it could be cancelled or aborted within that.
Yeah,
result.
we have that. Yeah. So okay. Yeah, just everything. I guess so we're clear on that. For someone writing a client or that's kind of listening to these events, that they know that.
But it sounds like we should maybe wait with the cancelled events altogether from in this PR and just have it similar to the other like activity events we have today. We just queued and started and finished.
Yeah, and I think finished had a status kind of, so that could.
Yeah.
So that, well, it has pass, fail, abort, error at this point. Post your comment, Andrea, which I haven't once again pushed yet because you suggested to add an error state here as well, or value.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, the other question was around trigger, I guess, or do you get? We're almost out of time. Do you have any spontaneous comment to that? It's something that, at least from our point of view, made sense. Just curious, what do you think?
I think that's what I was starting to talk about the queued event, because then the queued event is actually the triggering event, to me at least. So then those fields would be valid only for the queued event and not for the other ones.
Yeah.
And then they don't need to pre-end them with trigger. It could just be, I mean, it's, or maybe it's makes sense anyway to call it trigger type. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't mind having it in here as well, in case, I mean, you have a test system that does not go for queuing. So you could have a direct trigger, but yeah, I mean, in general, I think the idea of having the trigger information makes sense to me. I guess one small need is about the dots. I think.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I'll do it similarly to like you did for environments in the other one.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, I think these are still, I mean, it's a new version of existing events. So if we want to do like a minor version, we need to make backward compatible changes. So
actually, actually, now that we're renaming it to test case run and test suite run and all those things, the old events will, because they are called test case, they're called without run, right? So they will not be affected.
Right. Okay.
I don't know.
So we would basically.
Go on.
So I'm wondering if we would be then deprecating the old events and introducing new events, fresh new events.
That's a good point. And how do we? Should I just put that here? This deprecates the event, blah blah blah, or is there? How do we?
Since we haven't really reached 1.0, we haven't really started deprecating things because they are not really official anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. We could just remove them.
I mean, we can put a note. These used to be, I mean, in case someone notices.
That's a fair point. And then the test case run finish could start then from 0.1.0 draft instead of 0.2. Does it make sense then?
Sure.
Because it's a new event.
Oh, of course. Okay.
We didn't really discuss renaming of changing the event type, how that works. To be honest. So.
Okay, so I'll change that to 0.1.0 draft, and I'll add a note about that these events kind of supersede the old.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for all that.
All right. No, thank you. Thank you for driving this forward.
Well,
all right.
We're excited to implement them actually in test queues. So it'll be the fun part. Okay.
Test cube, is it? Do you use Golang?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
The backend is all Golang.
So we'll update the SDK once this is merged to get support in the Go SDK.
That could be on us. I think that's on us then to maybe do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Have a good
Take
rest
care.
of your day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.